Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have another interview in our Remarriage Club series for you. Today, I am interviewing Tracey Forde, and she is going to tell us all about her dating after divorce journey. So welcome, Tracey.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome. And would you please introduce yourself to the listeners?
Absolutely. Well, I am, again, Tracey Forde, and I am a sister coach to Sade. I am a trauma healing and mindset transformation coach for high achieving Black women. And what I mean by high achieving Black women is the Black woman who is continuously striving to better herself in every area of her life. It doesn't matter if she's a stay-at-home mom or if she's a leader in the C-suite or a business owner. If she is doing the things to up-level herself, mind, body, spirit, soul, she is a potential client for me. And what I do with my clients is I help them reconnect with those hidden, denied, abandoned, or sometimes what we think are lost pieces of ourselves that have been tucked away, if you will, or again, pushed away due to trauma. And trauma could be historical trauma, social conditioning, of course, but it can also be loss of a loved one. It doesn't have to be something major, and past wounds.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And divorce is traumatic. At least my experience of divorce was traumatic.
Yes, it can be. I've been through it twice. So yes, it can be. And I do work with many women who have been through divorce, and some of the traumatic part of them is that parts of them have closed off to love, because what we tend to do is where we were hurt, we close those parts of ourselves off, and we have this wall up where someone can't penetrate it because there's this fear of being hurt in that way again, being rejected, possibly even being abandoned. And so we walk through that mind drama, because that's typically what it is. It's the mind drama that's driving those emotions that have them guarding themselves, because that's the action part of it. So yes, it can be. And my second divorce was actually traumatic. My first one was definitely needed because it was due to domestic violence and so forth. So it wasn't so much that the divorce was traumatic. The marriage itself was traumatic. But my second marriage was never supposed to end. It was fairy book. So when we decided to separate and go our separate ways, it was very hard. It took us over 5 years to actually finally divorce.
Wow.
Yes.
How long were you married both times?
16 years, if you include the time until we actually got divorced. So 16 years, but we'd known each other since we were in grade school. And we'd had this crush on each other, but we never ever dated in school. We were in classes together. We both ended up marrying people who we shouldn't have married in the first place. And we had a great friendship. And I think that's the reason why we're still friends today and want nothing but the best for each other. But we did not do the inner work before we actually got married. And there were signs for both of us. It's specifically for me because I did address a lot of the signs that I saw, but we were also dating long distance at the time. So I thought, as many of us who are in love, any problem, we can fix it once we're together, especially when you're dating long distance. So because of the love we had for each other as people and as friends, we just figured we could make this marriage work. And we gave it a good try, but both people have to be willing to do the work. And I was doing the work. He would sometimes do the work and, sometimes drop the ball. Great person. But it takes two people to mend. It takes two people to break a relationship, just like it takes two people to make a relationship work.
Right. And that frame of reference of what work is can be different. Like for you, you were probably like, hey, we need to do all these things to fix this. And then he might have like a different definition of doing the work, or a different definition of when things are good. Like he's probably, you know, I'm not, you know, in his case, doing the work or things being good might have been different from your definition. And I try to explain to my clients a lot of the times, I listen, you have to make sure everyone's on the same page in what you're defining.
Absolutely. And we were very communicative. That is the one thing. And he's but if a person, even when you have this communication about what doing the work looks like, the person also has to recognize that they are a part of the problem. They also have to recognize that there is work that they need to do. And if they don't actually own up to those pieces and those parts of themselves that need to do the work, that need to have that work focused on, it doesn't matter if they understand what that means to do the work. Because, and that was part of, and even to this day, he still has not done the work. He still does not own up to the parts of him that have unhealed trauma, that have kept him, you know, with walls up, because he still does have walls up. I mean, we talk about his current relationship and, you know, I'm like, you're still not, what, dude? But it's on him. And it's on both parties to actually say, you know what, I'm willing to strip back all of the layers so that we can move forward. But because we're doing this, it's going to also mean that I'm going to be able to heal. And when I heal, that means I'm going to be a better person for me, which means I can be a better person for you. Because at the end of the day, it's about being a better person for you. Because once you become a better person, it extends outward. It's like what we say in the coaching industry: what you do well in one thing, you do well in other things. And what you don't do well in other things, it shows in those things in other things as well. So it's the same concept.
Yeah. So this was your second husband, the one who was your friend from grade school, your friends for a long time. Yes. After your first divorce, you got married and then you got divorced.
Yes.
How long after your second divorce did you start dating again?
I actually was, because we lived long distance. Long story short, I actually took a job in a different state while we were married. We agreed on it because 2009, so much was going on with recession and so forth. So we were not living in the same home. And I started actively dating even while we were still married, because I kept saying, do you want to work on this? And he was like very silent. But he wouldn't give me the divorce. He was like, I'm not ready to divorce. I'm like, but why not? So I actually started putting fillers out in 2015. I got on Plenty of Fish and OkCupid. I'm not even sure if they're still around, but those were the two platforms that I joined. And I was very, very adamant, because I had already started doing my work started in 2009, even though we actually didn't divorce until 2016. But I had started doing my healing in 2009. So even though we weren't in the same house, I was still doing the work, which was the reason why I was still willing to work on getting back together. So by that time, when I put the feelers out and, you know, what's this dating world like? Because to be quite honest, I never really had to date. My first husband was I met him when I was 10. We married and had 2 daughters. My second husband was someone that I knew. I never had to date really. So dating was very, very new to me. Sorry. Dating was very, very new to me. And it was also the first time that I'd actually lived on my own, because I had my children, moved in with my husband, and I never lived on my own. So I was my first time being on my own. So lots of firsts for me. So when I put those feelers out there, I was very, very sure of what I wanted in the next person. And I actually wasn't looking to marry, to be quite honest. I was like, I'm just wanting to date, because in my mind, I was like, I am never marrying anyone ever again. Done, kaput, no ma'am.
2 times was enough.
2 times was enough, but never say never.
Mm.
And it wasn't that I didn't believe in marriage anymore. And it wasn't that I didn't believe in love anymore. I didn't want to go through the possible hurt of it not surviving. And from what I saw from the dating scene, even though I had a great dating experience online, I was very, very intentional when I created my profile. I was very intentional about stating what I was what was, a boundary for me, not really stating it as a boundary, but knowing if anyone read it, they were like, "Oh, she's not the woman for me."
Can you clarify what that was? Like,
Yes.
what was the intention that you put out, and how did you put it out?
Okay, my intention was I wanted to date someone who was open, who was first and foremost, they had a relationship with God, not someone that I had to poke and prod and, get them to read their Bible or say a prayer. If you didn't have your own personal relationship, intimate relationship with God, spirit, whomever, I did not even want to be bothered. And that was very, very, very prominent inside my profile. It was also very prominent that if you were not the type of person that was willing to put the work into a relationship, meaning simple things such as driving, because I lived in Northern Virginia at that time. So if you were in, let's say, DC, I needed someone who was willing to put the work into for dating, which would mean driving or, getting on the metro system or whatever it was to make it happen. Because I am not one to, it's nothing wrong with picking up someone to go on a date every now and then, but I wanted to be courted. There were certain things that I needed to make certain that this person was a man who understood what courtship meant.
Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates, so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. And how did you indicate that courtship? Because this is actually a module in my program where I have ladies fill out like their ideal partner and who they are and everything about it. It's a lot of self-explanatory work. And the reason I have them do that is like we need to do this so that we can know what message you need to put out into the world. And like, I'm talking to you, I did it, but there's not a lot of people that I've talked to who did it also, who like knew the core things they were looking for and knew how to say it without like sounding like a drill sergeant in their profile.
Right. It was very, how do I say it? Because I would say, this is what I do, and this is what I expect. If this isn't something that you are willing to do, there's no reason to contact me. No foul. I wish you all the best. And that's kind of how I would put it out there. And so when someone would reach out to me and they would have, certain ways of speaking, for instance, if someone was reached out to me on online and they was like, "What's up?" I knew that was not the person for me.
Yes.
But I had also done the work written down everything that was non-negotiable and something that I could work with. And there were several non-negotiables. Was one, the relationship with God. The second non-negotiable for me was they had to understand that just because I am a woman does not mean that I am not independent. I can be a submissive woman, and submissive to me does not mean a walking mat. Submissive to me means that I can follow your leadership, but you have to show me that you are a leader.
I love
I'm just
that.
not going to follow you just because you said you're the head of the house. That doesn't work over here. You need to show me that you are a leader, and by showing me that you're a leader is in how you show up in the world. The other thing that for me that I did not do, I did not give a lot of details of what I was looking for in a man, because here's what I've learned is that when you tell people what you are looking for, they are going to try to imitate that, whether that is who they are or not, because they see something in you that they want to receive from you.
Yes, they will pretend to be what you're looking for.
Exactly. They will pretend. So you get this person and then you get into this relationship and feelings are involved. And then you start to see this person turn into someone else. And you're like, this is not who I dated. Yeah. So when men would ask me, what are you looking for in a man? I was like, I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah,
when
you just show me who you are.
Show me who you are, and that's where I will make my decision. But I don't believe in giving you a roadmap per se, and so that you can actually play into what it is I'm looking for. And that worked very well for me.
Yeah, I teach my clients, the way I give them that analogy is I'm like, listen, you cannot give him the answers to the test.
That part.
Like the man, you have a test, you have this ideal client profile that we've developed for you. Right. And now you're going to just say, okay, sir, here are the answers to the test. Show up like this and I will give you my person. It's like, no, you're looking for the man who is already all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that so much.
And it's so funny because I would just literally, my current husband, he and I, we have our moments, of course, but there's so many things about him that I had no idea, for instance, and what really helped me to fall in love with him was we were out to, I'm not even sure if it was dinner, but we were eating at IHOP or something that was prior to us become vegans. And one of the things he did that really blew my mind was that we would always tip, of course, but he would always tip anyone who was cleaning, the custodian, no one that waited on us. He would just always be like, you know, let me go talk to them. And I never knew what he was doing at first. And then it was like, what are you doing? And he would always tell them, thank you for keeping the place clean. Things that most people don't even think about doing. And that was major for me because that showed me a part of his character. That showed me how much he cared about people. So I never told him any of the things that I would just watch him. I would look at how he was dealing with his children. What type of relationship did he have with his mother? How did he speak to his mother? How did he speak to people in general? How did he show up at work? I would literally just look. And if you were to have a conversation with him, he'd be like, she was tough. She didn't tell me anything. She just expected me to, and he would always tell me, I don't know what you're looking for, but I can tell you this. I'm not like any of the other men. I was like, I'm not looking for you to be like any other men. I just want you to be you. However, it was a little bit because I wasn't used to someone like that either, who was very sure of himself, because most people are trying to fit into whatever society's definition of what a man or a woman or someone is supposed to be. And he was coloring outside the lines. And that was also very attractive for me, was that he was coloring outside the lines. Can it sometimes be bothersome now as a wife? Yes, because sometimes it's like, dude, I know you don't do this, but
do you mind doing it? I love that.
Right.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. How long were you on the apps before you met him?
Oh my gosh, I was not on the apps long at all. I actually had a couple of dates, and I did have one experience that wasn't great, but I didn't let it taint how I felt about it, because I met doctors. I met actually one of the guys that I actually went out with a couple of times. He got married and we still talk. It just wasn't going to work. He's a great guy.
How old were you at the time? Sorry, I know I'm peppering you with all these questions, but I know this is what my listeners are going to be asking. When you got on the app, how old were you?
Okay, I'm 54 now. So I had to be right before turning 50, somewhere right in that area, because we've been married
Right.
2 years, 26. We started dating in 2015. No, let me rephrase that. We started associating in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't really ready for a relationship. And I was like, that's fine. Do you? And I went about my life. But we met. I hadn't been on there long because I wasn't very active. I was like, whatever happens, happens. So I
Mm-hmm.
probably had been on there maybe a few months, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't actively engaged in either one of them, if you will. Um, if someone reached out, great. If they didn't, I was okay with that. And I think that was the mindset of being okay and not being tethered to the thought of, I really need to meet someone,
Yeah.
open up possibility, because I was still living my life. I was
Mm-hmm.
still going out with my girlfriends. I was still doing me. I was whatever made me happy, I was still doing it. I was traveling. I was spending time with my family. I was doing all the things. And because I was so free without that connection of needing, because when you need something, you are, it's that, it's like the lack of, what is it, scarcity
It's a
mindset
scarcity
or
man. You're
poverty
attached. You're really
mindset.
attached
Yeah,
to the outcome.
you're exactly. So when you're that way, it actually closes the opportunities. It closes the doors, and you're on this tunnel vision where there's nothing else that matters, and so you're not in the present. You're only focused
Mm.
on what you want, which is forward thinking, but you can't even live in the present. So you close yourself off to that. And at the time, I wasn't a coach, but I always felt that I just needed to just live my life. And remember, I started my journey of healing from all of my trauma and past wounds, from being in an abusive marriage and, feeling abandoned as a child in 2009. So by the time I was on the app in 2015, I'd done a lot of inner work. So
Mm.
I was at a place where I was okay with that. But I can't say, even when I was dating with my second husband, I was always very, um, what's the word that I'm looking for? I was very sure of who I am, but there was a part of me that was also very, I won't use the word needy because I don't think the word that it gets a good connotation. I didn't realize how much of my trauma was actually affecting how I was showing up in my marriage to him. I was
Yeah.
requiring him to do things that weren't his place. He could not take the place of my father not being there. He could not take
Mm.
the place of the nurturing that I didn't receive from my mother. He could not fill the holes in my heart from the first husband. Um, Committing adultery and all the things that he did. So there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, if you will, past hurt that I expected him to be able to help me heal when it wasn't his responsibility. It was my responsibility to heal. And whatever
Right.
he gave as a result of supporting me as his wife was the icing on the cake, but I didn't understand that then. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
get that message until 2014. And I actually apologized to him in 2015. October of 2015, I apologized to him and told him how sorry I was for putting so much pressure on him in the marriage to be something that he wasn't supposed to be. He was only supposed to be my husband, not my savior.
Right. That's so, so powerful. That's so powerful. So it sounds to me like you saw dating, you almost went into it just saying, hey, I'm going to need to figure this out at some point,
Yes.
right? I need to figure these apps out. I need to learn this. And just by having that like learning mindset, like that open growth mindset about dating
Yes.
and not like, okay, I need to get married now, almost
Right.
like just having that non-attachment and
Yeah.
seeing it as like this just one piece of the adventure that you were creating in your life. It
Yes.
put
And
you in
I
the
had no
energy
idea.
and the attitude that brought your husband to you.
Absolutely. Because I think I went out one, two, I've been on maybe 4 or 5 dates. Again,
Mm-hmm.
all great men except for one. But they just weren't, it just didn't click. And I saw a picture of him. He was in his soccer gear and he was standing really just like, I'm the stuff. I'm all of this. And I was like, oh my God, he is a handsome man. And I did not realize where he lived in California, Maryland, but I thought he lived in the state of California because I did not know there was a California, Maryland. So I just sent him a little message and I said, thank you so much for representing 49, I think we were 40, 48, 49-year-old men. You look great. I really thank you for making my eyes happy when I saw you. And I had no idea that I was ever going to meet this man, speak to him, anything. I was really just being appreciative of the fact that he was chocolatey goodness. Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
And he reached out to me and he said something and I was like, wow. I said, it's too bad that we'll never meet. And he was like, wow, wait a minute. Where's that kind of thinking come from? I was like, you're in California, dude. He was like, California, Maryland, next to Hollywood, Maryland. So then he showed me that he had a sense of humor. But again, he wasn't ready. He was dating someone, but he just wasn't ready. Now,
was he divorced and single, or he was just always single?
He was single. He was single. But he'd been previously divorced as well. So we'd both been divorced, but he wasn't ready. He was still dealing with his own heartaches and pains and so forth. And then in 2016, I got this beautiful Valentine's Day flowers and chocolates, and I had no idea where they were from. So I called my daughters because my daughters are always giving me things. And I was like, did you guys surprise mommy with these? I mean, I got 24 red roses, 24 chocolate covered strawberries, and this note that said something about blessings or something. And I should have known because one of the words he said is blessings. But by the time I realized who it was, I was like, oh my God, did he really just send me? Because we weren't dating and we hadn't talked or anything. And I remember. So
you had met on the app, maybe you went out on a date or two and then just kind of parted ways.
Yeah, because I could tell he wasn't ready.
And I just love that you were able to just let him go.
Yeah.
Like you didn't attach to him just because you went on a couple of dates.
You know what? Hey, I realize that this isn't ready. I said, when you're ready, if I'm available, hey, we'll connect again. And if not, I wish you all the best. That was how I always ended things. It wasn't that I didn't like him. I really did like him, but I'm not ever going to chase someone. That never turns out well for anyone. And it just wasn't in my nature. But when he decided, because I remember he asked me something about February 10th, and I had no idea. I thought, oh, well, maybe he's thinking about a date. But the date, I didn't get a call from him. I didn't get anything. I got the flowers and stuff and it still didn't click. Yeah. So when I finally made the connection, he came to visit me and he said, I'd like to see how we can make this work. And we've been together ever since.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah.
These are the stories that well, not me, because I'm remarried now, but like my single ladies, my single friends.
Yes.
Sometimes because you're not in it, you can't really conceive of how it could happen, or they believe it's just luck, that it can never happen for them, and it's just a fluke. And I just want to tell everyone, like, listen, these things happen.
They do.
Right? They do happen. And there's nothing wrong with him. There's no reason why you can't have it. Like, you might need to do some work. So if you want to do some work, come to the academy or talk to Tracey about healing some trauma, right? Like, you might need to do some work to get there, but like, why not? Why not believe that it's possible?
Right. And why not invest in you? Because when you come to the table in wholeness, you absolutely can detach from the outcome because you already know what you are already capable of and how freaking amazing you already are. You don't need anyone to tell you that you're beautiful. That just becomes the icing on the cake. And it's the funny thing, because when I would get messages inside my, what is it, Plenty of Fish and OK Cupid, and people would go, you're beautiful. And I go, thank you. I know it. I appreciate it. And I wasn't being conceited, but I think that a lot of times, because women are, and I'm going to say this, and this is a generalization, but what I see is that so many women sometimes are craving for the compliments outside of themselves versus giving those compliments to themselves and being sure of who they are. That's when we fall into this trap and we make some decisions that aren't serving us because we are externally looking for validation versus internally giving ourselves that validation, where when we get that person who really does love us and care about us, they don't necessarily have to say you're beautiful all the time. They don't have to, they show you. And because they're showing you and they're showing you how much you matter to them, then you can absolutely, that feeling of beauty and being respected and being desired and being wanted, it's a feeling that comes from the inside out.
Yeah. Yes. And you have it all the time. So your spouse can have a bad day or your boyfriend can have a bad day and you're still fine.
Exactly. You're like,
you don't collapse because he's not feeding you. Yeah.
Right. He's having one of those moments today or he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, okay. And I went on about my business and now he came up and gave me a hug.
Yeah.
We learn how to give them space also while we're giving ourselves space, and space equals grace. Yeah. But I won't say that it's been easy because he was still dealing with his trauma, and we are now a little over 2 years into our marriage, and he is still dealing with unraveling the things that have gone on with him. But what has made it possible for us to get to this and for us to go through this together is, one, giving myself grace, giving him grace, and understanding that the process of healing is a journey. It is not something that we're just going to run through it and it's going to happen.
So I have a question about that. And this is just really to clarify for people who are listening. Like, he has his journey of healing. And I notice sometimes women will want to take responsibility for helping the man heal, or they will allow him to put the brunt of the fact that they're not healed on them.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and what you're experiencing?
The difference is that he knows that it is his responsibility to do the healing. My responsibility as his wife, and even if we weren't married, as a friend or someone that I was dating, would be, I'm here to support you. It's on you to make the phone calls. It's on you to show up and do the work. It's on you. I'm not even going to be your accountability partner because you have to have some responsibility for yourself, that you want to be accountable to get your own healing. And I think also because and I'm going to speak from being a Black woman, I can't speak from any other than being general as a woman, but as Black women, we have been taught that we are supposed to carry that weight. And if you are a Black woman or a woman of color who's been taught about the strong Black woman schema or the superwoman trope, we've been taught that we're supposed to take those types of things and run with it if he's not hurting you in any type of way. That makes us codependent, and we don't realize that actually makes us codependent and keeps us in relationships that don't serve us. And it actually not only that actually sometimes disrespect us and also minimize who we are as a person. So for me, because I was so very vocal about where my boundaries were, and many of my boundaries I never had to speak.
We don't have most of the boundaries are for you to maintain for yourself.
Exactly. Like, for instance, he knows if you hit me, I'm out. If, you disrespect me in certain ways, I'm out. That's, I don't give second chances for some things, but I never had to speak them. But when those things some things happened, if something was said or done, I would immediately say, that's not kosher. If you do this again, this is what the repercussions are going to be. And I have no problem absolutely enforcing my boundaries, but I had to get to that place. It didn't happen overnight. And that goes back to with him being responsible for his healing. I am here to support him through that process. But when I start to see that I am actually carrying more of that than him, then that's when we need to have a coming to Jesus conversation, and we need to shift in the relationship as far as that healing goes. That is not our responsibility to do someone else's heavy work for their healing. Our
Yeah.
heavy work is for us to do our healing.
100%. And I was about to say that was like, how are you going to have enough space to do the work? All of us are carrying something. And
Yes.
a lot of things can be a lifelong journey to keep teasing that out and keep working and keep growing. And even when you're not dealing and healing with trauma, building what you want to build in the world, creating what you want to create in the world, writing your book, starting your business, getting that promotion. If you're taking all of your time, attention, resources, energy, and using it on someone else's healing, when are you ever going to have the time and space to create what you want to create in the world?
Absolutely. I have this saying, and I always tell my children, my clients, never pour out of your cup. Only pour from your overflow. If you start pouring from your cup gets empty really, really fast. So if your cup isn't always full and you don't have overflow, that's not the time for you to start pouring into someone else. You only pour from your overflow. Because here's the thing, most of us are running around with empty tanks, empty cups, empty cupboards, because we are constantly putting our emotions, our needs on the back burner, because again, that's what we've been socialized to do, whether it's from generational or ancestral or from social conditioning from the world in general, because the world in general tells us that we're supposed to pour into the man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what we've been conditioned, that we're pouring into the man and we get whatever comes out of that. No. We are more, if there's this, I was listening to something that says, whatever you give a woman, she multiplies it. Right? So if you're going to be the woman that you want to be, that you choose to be, that you deserve to be, if you're not pouring into yourself and making sure that you are good, you aren't any good for anyone else.
Yeah. And it doesn't even the idea of being good for anyone else, it's like not even needed.
It's not.
Your responsibility is to be good for you. If you take care of you, like that's a service to the world. That nobody has to take care of you.
Right.
Because if that's all you do, that's good.
Right. Like you said, it doesn't even matter about being any good to anyone else, because that is the part that is the best for the world. You being your best self and you pouring into yourself and making sure that your needs are met, making sure that you're able to tap into your emotions, making sure that you're whole, that you're healed. And again, healing is not something that is a destination. It's something that's going to be ongoing. I am healing. In fact, my husband and I took a week away without him. I took me, myself, and I trip just last month in July. And I encourage anyone that is married or if you're dating to go and do that, because what you come back with, if you are spending that time properly, reflecting on yourself, reflecting on your relationship, reflecting on what you want in this world, you come back so inspired. He did the same thing. He stayed home and he did his. And when we got back together, it was like, wow. The sparks were flying. We had so many revelations. We had opportunity to actually look at what was working, what wasn't working. And we came back and we were like, okay, so this is where we want to work in our relationship. And this is where I want to work on me as an individual and where he wants to work on himself as an individual. So we're working together, but we're still working as individuals as well. And it makes so much of it, because he never had anyone to do that. And I was like, it's perfect. And I started doing that in my last marriage. And that was how I realized that it was time for us to, either divorce or get some help. And so here we are.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like we started doing the work, and doing the work for you made it evident that this person was not going to participate in that work.
Yeah.
I love that. You've answered like all my last 5 questions. You just answered like all of them. In there, my question about like, what's your advice for women dating after divorce? I'm like, work on yourself. That's what it sounds like. But what's next for you? Like, when you and your husband look at the future, like what's coming up for you? And another way I'd like to phrase this question is kind of like, what's interesting and inspiring about this new family that you've built with him?
Oh, wow. Well, one, what's so beautiful about it is I have an amazing I don't in-laws. I don't like to call them
Mm,
in-loves. I have amazing
yeah.
in-loves. They are so supportive of he and I, both as individuals and even as a couple, which is amazing. I never had that in either of my marriages before. And I can honestly tell you it makes a huge difference when you are at a place where you don't need that. I needed that from the other relationships, at least I thought I did. And now that I'm at a place where I don't feel like I need it, and even if they didn't love me, I would still be able to love them. And that is the difference. I could not love my other in laws because they
Mm,
did not love me. They did not respect
mm.
me the way that they should. But even if they didn't now, I could still love them. And that's because I've done the work on me. And because I've done the work on me, there wouldn't be any riffraff that there was before.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's really, really interesting. Second thing is that my children, they're grown. His children are grown. We all have a wonderful, it's a good blended relationship where I did not have that before. And I think that's because of the way we built the foundation. I know that's the way, it's because the way we built the foundation. And also because my kids are grown and his kids are grown also, they have their own, life ahead of. Now for us, our focus is on retirement and our vacation home. We're trying to figure out if we're still going to stay in the US or if we're going to move to another country. My husband is from Barbados. But that's it's the fun part now of what do we do without we're
So
empty
many,
nesters, right? So
so
we
many
don't, what do we
possibilities.
do? Where do we go next? What's
Yeah.
the next on our agenda? So and we don't have grandkids, may not have grandkids. So if we do, that would be great. um, no pressure, daughters, if you're listening. um, and sons, if you're listening, no pressure. You guys can't anyway, you're too young for that.
That's
But
right.
and just continuously, my husband is also an artist, so the other thing is for him to get his studio and to get out in the world, because that has been a dream of his entire life, and we want to make that come to pass. And for me to just continue supporting Black women in their healing and liberating themselves from the social conditioning and the trauma and the past wounds. And that looks like retreats and all the things. So
Yeah,
it's
that
lots
that
of
that work
fun
is
stuff.
so needed. So
Yeah.
needed. I was having a conversation with my son just yesterday about how coaching and therapy just needs to be made so much more accessible to people
Yes.
because literally every human every human has something that they're dealing with.
Absolutely. Every human. I always tell my clients, because I have clients who come to me and they're like, I don't have a traumatic childhood. It's not so much that you had a traumatic childhood. It's about we have been traumatized in the world. If you've lived through COVID, you're living through COVID. We are being traumatized right now. We've got the back and forth because there's no and either, there's always either or, not and both, or, we don't have that consensus. So we just sometimes just getting in the car, getting a cup of coffee somewhere can be traumatizing. Just dealing with traffic and the way people are not kind to one another, that can be
Mm-hmm.
traumatic. So trauma doesn't have, and I hate when we have this big T and little t because it almost minimizes someone else's trauma. I don't like to
Mm-hmm.
do that. Whatever is that you've experienced that is causing you pain is trauma, and it matters
Yes.
regardless of how big or small someone else may say it is. It's big to you, so it matters to you. And that's how I'd like to show up with my clients and help them to understand it. Because like you said, we need more therapists, we need more coaches, but we also need for insurance companies and other companies to recognize that the coaching industry is just as important as therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and how well we work together when we are able to work with our clients together. Because when I see the therapist working and the coaches working, and the transformation that our clients get when we are working hand in hand, it's a beautiful,
So
beautiful
powerful.
transformation. Yes, it is.
Yeah. All right. Tracy, thank you so, so much for sharing so much of your story and being so transparent about your journey. We're going to link up all your links in the show notes, but for the people who want to just write it down, while they're listening, can you tell the listeners where they can find you, spell out your social media so they can find you right away?
Absolutely. I am on social media and my handle is Planted to Flourish. And that's planted, PLANTEDTOFLOURISH. And that's planted2flourish.com. On Instagram, it's Planted to Flourish. On Facebook, it's Planted to Flourish. On YouTube, it's Planted to Flourish. So you can find me almost anywhere. Just look up Planted to Flourish. And Forde is spelled Forde. Thank you,
Tracey with a CEY, Forde with an E.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. I appreciate your story. I know it's going to help so many women today. Everyone listening, thank you so much for your time and attention. Make sure you follow Tracey all over the web. If you resonate with her work and feel like you just want to find out more about what she does, make sure you reach out and just ask her questions or book a call with her. And thank you for your time and attention. And I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to SadeCurry.com to get started. That's SadeCurry.com. I'll see you inside.